There's something going on behind the scenes with the Browns that, honestly, might seem minor, but it actually says a lot about how this franchise is thinking about the immediate future. Because when you start hearing that Dillon Gabriel might get shipped out for basically a seventh-round pick, that's not just about the player. That's about internal evaluation. That's about direction. And to me, that's the real story here. Let's break this thing down. We're just a little over 2 weeks out from the draft. The Browns are sitting on picks 6 and 24, real draft capital. But everything points to them not addressing QB on day one. And that's where Gabriel comes in. A guy who, let's be real, kinda got lost in the shuffle. Not just with the fan base, but apparently inside the building too. New head coach Todd Monken basically admitted he hasn't even really gotten a look at the kid yet this offseason. That alone? That's a loud message. Now stack that with last year's performance. 1-5 as a starter. Bad situation? Yeah, but the production wasn't exactly lighting it up either. So the obvious question is, how much do the Browns actually believe in this guy? Because when you're even considering moving a young QB, a third-round pick, for peanuts, that usually isn't strategy, that's a lack of interest. And here's where the real dog-pound analysis kicks in. If the Browns actually saw Gabriel as a legit developmental piece, he'd be getting reps in Monken's system right now. He'd be around, getting mentioned, getting integrated. But the silence around him? That ain't neutral. That's telling. And the rumored trade value, basically a seventh-rounder, just reinforces it. That's pretty much saying, if someone wants him, go ahead and take him. Now, does that even make sense? Depends how you look at it. If you're just talking asset management, it makes zero sense. You spent a third-round pick in 2025, and now you're ready to take a massive loss that fast. That's rough. But if you look at scheme fit, now we're having a different conversation. Todd Monken runs a very specific offense. Structured, timing-based, clean operation. It's not built on backyard football. Gabriel, from what we saw in college and in his limited NFL action, is more of an instinctive, sometimes chaotic playmaker. That's not exactly Monken's type. So yeah, this could just be a straight-up mismatch. And here's another angle people aren't really talking about: timing. If the Browns are seriously thinking about drafting another QB, keeping Gabriel on the roster might just create redundancy. Worse than that, it could slow down the development of someone they believe in more. But at the same time, there's something about this that doesn't sit right with me. Because the Browns' offense last year? Straight up mess. We're talking one of the worst units in the league. Again, O-line issues, passing game was stale. No creativity, poor execution. It wasn't just Gabriel struggling. Even Joe Flacco, a seasoned vet, had a hard time getting anything going in that setup. So how fair is it, really, to judge Gabriel off that? That's where I hesitate on pulling the trigger. Because now, at least on paper, things look a little better. They've reinforced the offensive line with guys like Elgton Jenkins, Zion Johnson, and Titus Howard. Not elite across the board, but definitely an upgrade. And Monken should bring more structure to the offense. So there's a legit argument that Gabriel hasn't even been evaluated in a functional environment yet. Trading him now? That's basically selling low. And history says that usually bites teams, especially ones that already struggle to find stability at QB. Sound familiar, Browns fans? Let's run through the scenarios. Best case if they keep Gabriel. He gets into the new system, benefits from better protection, builds confidence, and at worst, becomes a solid backup. At best, maybe even pushes for something more, depending on how the draft shakes out. He doesn't have to be a star, just needs to show he's worth something. Worst case if they keep him. He stays inconsistent, doesn't click with Monken, and you've wasted roster space and time on a guy who's not part of the future. Best case if they trade him. You clear space, clean up the QB room, and bring in someone who better fits the system through the draft. But again, the return is basically nothing. Worst case if they trade him. He lands somewhere else, in a friendlier system, develops, and the Browns basically gave away a valuable asset for scraps. And let's be honest, we've seen that movie before in Cleveland. But to me, the biggest issue isn't even Gabriel. It's the Browns' offense as a whole. So far, the only real personnel upgrade is the offensive line. That helps, sure, but it doesn't fix everything. They still lack depth, explosiveness at receiver, and overall consistency. So when people talk about a more functional offense, right now, that's more projection than reality, and that directly affects any QB in that building. Gabriel, a rookie, whoever. So here's where I land. If the trade really is for basically nothing, I'm not doing it. I'd keep Gabriel through training camp, let him compete in a better setup, and reevaluate. The cost to keep him is low, and there's still upside to rebuild his value. Now, if internally they've already decided he doesn't fit the system, then yeah, no point dragging it out. But that says more about the Browns' plan than it does about the player. And maybe that's the biggest takeaway here. The Browns are starting a new offensive era, and how they handle a young QB like Gabriel might tell us just how patient, or impatient, this organization is willing to be. So let me throw it to you, Dog Pound. Are you keeping Dillon Gabriel and letting Munkin try to develop him? Or are you moving on and going all in on the draft? Because depending on that call, this franchise might be heading down a very different road than it looks right now.